Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. It's Wendy Cherry from the Sanctuary Radio Show. Welcome again. We are in the last few weeks of summer school. We started summer school here on the Sanctuary Radio Show in June, and we're just keeping it moving. So again, as you know, I like to share on my social. So if you give me a second, I'm going to share this on my page. Okay, that was quick. That was easy. Okay. So welcome. I have some really cool guests here with me today. We've been planning this for quite a while. I have EmmanuelTaylor and I have Manifest Ra, and they're going to introduce themselves. So I usually focus on healing, but I usually focus on women, because I always believe when you heal women, you heal the family. However, there is a different kind of set of tools that you need, and a different energy that happens when you're dealing with men. And these two are the brothers who I have become acquainted with, who have taught me some of those things, but also that is what they do for their life. Like, that's their passion, and they are really here to help some of the brothers to help navigate all the craziness that's going on. And they were doing this before the COVID. This is their passion in their life. So I'm going to introduce you first to Manifest Ra. Welcome, Manifest.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It's a pleasure to be in the sanctuary, if you will, with my good brother, Emmanuel. And I just want to, say greetings to all the beautiful people out there, the men and women watching and listening. So it's a pleasure to be here, Wendy.
And Manifest, you are a third timer up in this piece.
Third time.
Well, that up in this piece. Usually we're in the studio, but you have an even more beautiful studio of being at home. So welcome. And then I have EmmanuelTaylor. Welcome, Emmanuel.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm definitely grateful to be here. Glad to have the invitation. I know we had attempted to make this connection before, and I'm glad that we finally were able to do so. Yeah, so it's an honor and a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. And this is sort of like divine timing, because what a time that we're in. Like, we had no idea the last time either of us spoke to each other that this kind of situation would be happening now. Now, I'll say we may have had an inkling, but we in it now. This is not a test anymore. This is really what's happening. So, how are you doing? Like, I want to know from both of you, how are you just doing emotionally, spiritually, physically? Like, how are you doing?
Well, it's thank you so much for asking, Wendy. That is a very loaded question. I would say most days I am in alignment, empowered, and fulfilling my mission. Now, that being said, COVID, as well as many of the racial and cultural issues that permeate our society and the world, all of those contribute to a backdrop of, tension to some degree, anxiety, not necessarily for brothers like Emmanuel and I, but it actually permeates the energy field, the atmosphere. Every being on the planet, every sentient being, even animals, has an energy field. So when you have a collective, a human family, if you will, and particularly Black folks, there is a collective energy. There's an energy field, and we experience that. We feel that.
Yeah.
How do we navigate that? And so during these times, there's also a considerable amount or an increase in caring for family, being very concerned for loved ones that we're not able to see as, in a fluid manner as we oftentimes see them. Our relationships can be strained, and there's a great level of uncertainty. So I find myself, I'm very much a family man.
Yeah.
Love my mother, my father, my sister, my brother, and all those around me. And sometimes I have to pull back and remember to self-care and take care of me. Now, generally speaking, that's my process anyway. I have
Yeah.
Qigong, meditation, DNA activation, and all of those things. But you know, there are times when the pillar, the rock in the family, still can find himself, you know, wearing himself out, burn the candle at both ends. And so it's just a daily check-in. I have a number of different healing modalities, spiritual modalities that I do. And, you know, before I passed on to Emmanuel, but, you know, just like today, I got up at 5 something, did my spiritual cleansing with Palo Santo, similar to sage, did some healing sounds of Qigong, did some sun gazing and earthing, put my feet rather, in the earth. And that charged me up, you know, about 7:30, I'm charged up, purified, fortified, and moving forward. So, you know, I have a number of modalities in that nature, but still, even with that, you know, there's times where we just have to go within, because when we go within, we win. So those are some of the things that I do to ensure that I'm navigating these times in the most enlightened and elevated way possible.
And Brother Manifest, I appreciate that. I feel like on my side, I'm recognizing a lot of things. You know, COVID has caused many different things in our reality to slow down, to pause, and some things to halt altogether. You know, that's given me an opportunity to really take time to go within and do some internal processing, to get more clear on my priorities, to make sure that my activities are aligned with my priorities, so that, you know, I know how to move forward. I mean, you know, things like economic activity has slowed down, right? People's jobs, workplaces, finances. You know, there's so many things that have definitely ground to a halt because of COVID. International travel. I was living overseas right before the quarantine hit and managed to get right back into the US before the airlines literally shut down. You know, so COVID has definitely put a stop to a lot of things, but at the same time, there are some things that have persisted. Things like police brutality, things like militarism, right? Things like climate change, right? These things haven't stopped. And so as a result, I can't stop either. You know, COVID has really helped me to get clear on what it is that from my perspective needs to be done to help to secure a better future. And it's really reinforced the notion that the path that my ancestors have given to me is the one that needs to be walked. And I don't have time to waste deviating from that. And so COVID has given me an opportunity to refocus on my strategy, right? And to figure out what's most effective, and basically attempting to realize, you know, my personal vision and the purpose for my life.
Thank you all for sharing. I have so many things to touch on with that. They're hammering here where I am, so I keep putting it on mute. So if I point to you, Manifest, Emmanuel, just go, because I'm trying not to have the hammering in it. But Manifest, it's really interesting, some of the things that you said. It's one of those things where I got a lesson this week, but you just kind of co-signed and confirmed what my lesson was. So one of my friends was talking about, she's considered one of the strong friends, and she posted something about not feeling like her 100% self, and people were kind of taking it back. Some people checked on her, but she was like, the strong friend scenario is not good either, because some people are socialized to be the strong ones, and that's tough. It can be tough. So, you know, you just said, like, I was wondering how you guys were doing, because I know you have way more tools than me. I know some days, most days I'm great, but the last few days it's been harder because I can't see my mom. I haven't seen my mom since December. And so it didn't, you know, it always bothered me, but even more now, I think I'm not able to navigate it as well as I could, play the, like, put up the strong thing. I'm like, yo, I want my mommy, you know what I'm saying? Like, I had a little breakdown the other day. I called one of my sisters. I'm like, I just want my mom. And so those types of things that I would normally be doing in July, I travel internationally in July. I see my mom, it's her birthday. We weren't there for her birthday in July. So all of those things can affect our emotional, spiritual, but it also can affect our immunity, which is very important for us to have at this time. So, you know, what are you all doing to keep your immunity high and your spirits and vibrations high? Because what I'm learning, if nothing else, is that, you know, this is a lot of, and the reason why I started summer school actually was because I saw a lot of my friends and family who maybe don't have the tools that I have in hysteria, especially in the beginning. And so the fear keeps you vibrating low, which then diminishes your everything, including your immunity. So what are some of the things, Manifest, you said some things, but Emmanuel, what are you doing to keep your immunity? Like, what are some of your rituals for the day to help keep you strong?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me that I would say is just has gained more emphasis in my personal life since COVID has just been regular exercise, right? I'm used to doing things like, okay, I have my morning yoga, I got my evening yoga. Maybe I'll take a break in the afternoon to do some Qigong or something to help my circulation and my focus and my clarity, if I'm in the middle of working and things like that. And I'll exercise because it's important to stay in shape and keep up circulation and all those other things that are important when you teach Tantra and stuff like that, right? But I think that COVID has, for me, being somebody who enjoys being outdoors, kind of like I am right now. I found myself, working from home like a lot of people. I do consulting, I'm an entrepreneur, I do a bunch of different things, education, all types of stuff. I found myself just being in an apartment on a computer a lot, right? Lounging around on the sofa, not using my standing desk. And for me, like, I knew I had to make a commitment to get outside, to be outside, to not fall into the trap of just being indoors, breathing the same air, So in March, when I came back to the US, I was intentional about starting a small garden, in the space that I had available, and just getting outside, exercising and moving regularly. I think these things help to remind me that there's still a whole world out there, that my world is bigger than my apartment right now. And my experience is still connected to the natural world. And its cycles, There were times I'd go 3 days and realize I have not been outside. I don't know what the weather feels like. I'm becoming disconnected from the cycles of nature. So part of it for me has been just making sure that I stay exposed, and embedded in nature.
That's really interesting because you taught me at least one level of Tantra, right? And so one, I want you to explain what Tantra is, like the very basics, but I have been using that myself to connect to nature more. So I'm doing the opposite of what you're doing. I'm out there every morning. Like, I get up, not as early as Manifest, but I'm up 7 o'clock. I'm in the streets. I'm in the woods. I call it like going into the woods. And I have found 4 different pockets of woods to give myself some freedom, because I travel so much, and because I love travel, I actually feel stuck. I feel like a bug under a glass. I have not been. Beltsville is where I am right now. It's probably the furthest north I have been since March. And I'm from Jersey. Like, I'm used to being on that highway going to see my family. So, like you guys, I like make sure I try to ground, putting my feet in the soil, and I'm learning how to grow my own food. Like, I'm making sure I hear the water, I'm by water. And I never used to do that, but learning Tantra from you taught me how important that is. So can you, for people who are watching who may have no idea what I'm talking about, what is Tantra?
Okay. So Tantra is a system of personal development and growth that utilizes a wide variety of techniques. Tantra is known and respected as being sort of the highest expression of yoga. A lot of people associate Tantra with sexuality, and some people use Tantra and sacred sexuality as synonymous terms. That's because Tantra encourages us to grow by cultivating a particular energy, which some refer to as Kundalini, This is the energy of creation. And this is the energy that's associated with the experience of orgasm in the body as well. And so through Tantra, we learn to liberate this energy and to direct it through the energy body in order to basically to loosen up different things that have become bound within us. These things that become bound within our bodies and within our energy bodies typically reflect things that have become bound in the mind. And so it's a way for us to take things that have become very rigid within who we are, false belief systems, right? And we can start to loosen them up, and we can start to, become just the highest and the best version of ourselves, just removing false beliefs. And so we utilize an understanding of our energy body, the science of how it is that our emotions are connected to the physical body and connected to our energetic experiences. And we practice techniques that allow us to utilize that for personal growth and transformation. So Tantra is useful for personal growth, for spiritual growth, for reproductive health, and also to improve the health of our relationships and our sexual experiences as well.
Thank you. And so Manifest, you also study Tantra, but I heard you mention Qigong. What exactly is the practice of Qigong?
Qi means energy, Gong means cultivation, loosely, if you will. Qigong is an ancient path of cultivation and energetic empowerment. It's well known to have roots in China and Asia. However, people have been cultivating energy and their life force, since the first human beings have been on the planet. So really energy cultivation expressed itself first and foremost in Africa, whether it's just standing meditation, sitting meditation, gazing at the sun, harmonizing with the moon, tuning into the earth's energy field. And now, if you will, again, it's well known, Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine has made it the cornerstone of that particular system. So when you think of acupuncture points, moxibustion, which is the burning of medicinal qualities, and many of the other modalities in Chinese medicine, Chinese herbs, nutrition, all of that springs forth from Qigong, based off of Qigong theory and Qigong fundamentals. And so energy is everything. So Qigong, or energy cultivation, is a vast and ever increasing comprehensive system of sitting, standing, and moving meditative exercises. And so some of the sitting meditative exercises are just what we know as meditation, but it's circulating the energy through the energy centers, the vital organs, the cells, to revitalize, to purify and revitalize those very important aspects of our being. The standing meditation is a way to fully activate our life force, yet in a meditative state. So oftentimes the standing meditation is seen, at least from a Qigong standpoint, as the most empowered, because we're meditating, but we're standing up, we're fully activated. And then you have the moving meditation, which is oftentimes seen in Tai Chi like movements. And so when we think of energy in the body, there's two primary ways that we experience disease from the TCM and the Qigong vantage point. One is energy stagnation, and the other is energy deficiency. Energy stagnation is when the energy is simply not circulating. So anything that we do excessively can bring about either energy stagnation or energy deficiency. Sitting too much, the energy becomes stagnant. We become lethargic. Standing too much, have a seat. Sleeping too much. So, moderation in all things is the ideal approach. So energy deficiency, that goes into what we spoke of earlier, wearing ourselves out, burn the candle at both ends, feeling like there's not enough hours in the day and we need to do something else, as opposed to going with the universal flow and allowing things naturally to unfold. And so real quick, I remember in the early mid 90s, I had an experience. This is before I even got into Qigong. I got into Qigong in 2000, 20 years ago. And I remember going through a phase, and I don't recall how that unfolded, but I had an affirmation that I would say daily in all times. Everything is temporary. Everything is temporary. So I went through a phase where I didn't have many attachments, and I found myself in nature oftentimes, and I had this very, very high level of non-separation. Like I was a drop of water in the cosmic ocean, and everything, when I thought of something, it would manifest. When I needed something, it would show up. And so we've all had those moments of grace where it seems like we're just flowing with this divine abundance. And then, of course, we have those days where it seems like nothing works at all, and we just want to just tank it in. So that was my first experience with energy cultivation, just being in the flow of the universal process. And so a few years after that, that's when I learned about practices that help us live at the highest levels of our consciousness. And so Qigong is about health and wellness. It's about Tantra. It's about martial arts. Yet it's also about spiritual empowerment. And just imagine if there was a moment in your life where you had no impediments, no energetic blockages. What would that look like, Wendy? That would just look like you are downloading the divine intelligence from the creator, and it's just permeating your being. You're walking as God or goddess on the planet. And so that's our birthright. That's not woo-woo. We've had beings that have always done that. And we're living in a fifth dimensional time now. When I say fifth dimensional, expanded consciousness, expanded awareness, well, really that's not only a few people in a monastery or out in the forest or in a dojo. That's what we all should be attaining, that level of consciousness, which we call Wu Wei. Non-action leads to action. Mm-hmm.
So I do like that. I want to piggyback off of that comment that you made about it being woo-woo, because
Mm-hmm.
I venture to say many people don't know what you're talking about. Not just now. I mean, you broke it down nicely, but I'm saying, like, how did you get to where you got to that spot? Because I know it takes a lot of practice. And how did you get to where you're feeling like these tools, and maybe like a catalyst on how you got there? That's one. But then two, I wanted to say, being in nature, I've been going into nature, like I said, for a few years now, but like the last few days has been very important because I was sick for 3 days over the weekend. I'm talking bedridden, right? But before that, I was doing my regular getting out, doing my 5 miles, whatever it is I do, moving around, enjoying the sun, whatever. But those 3 days really had an impact. And I think that's where I got to the point where I was getting super emotional about not being able to do the things that I wanted to do. So I went out to the park yesterday, and the rains happened, and it was like, torrential rains. So now the water is just flowing. And as I stood there by the water, it was just like, go with the flow. But that's just a lesson from nature. Just like, go with the flow, Wendy. Stop being so extra. It's going to be okay. So how did you all get to this? They're hammering again, so I'm going to put it on mute. But Emmanuel, tell us how you came to this understanding of this kind of tapping into oneself.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I know for me, I guess I've had some hurdles and some challenges that I had to overcome in my life. I grew up in the foster care system in the 80s, which was an experimental system that was devised by the U.S. to take children out of their families and put them in other families, and then load up those families with resources, because that's the way to help kids, right? And anybody who's familiar with the system knows about all of the traumas and the abuses that occur as the result of that. And so I was not fortunate to escape those experiences. And by the time I got to college, I realized that I had some severe deficiencies in terms of my personality, my development, my ability to connect with other people. And that really became evident in my early 20s when I found myself divorced, when my first marriage had ended. And so at that point in time, I realized that I really needed tools to be able to change. right? And I was aware of some of the things that were problematic in my experiences, but I really didn't know what to do about it. I had been raised, in part, I had very uh, deep experiences in Christianity in the Christian church. I had had spiritual experiences, different different things that I knew were irrefutable in my own experience. Um, I was also and still am an electrical engineer, so I've earned a doctorate in engineering, right? So I have a very scientific mind that loves to understand processes. And so the more I looked into my spiritual experiences and I questioned how it was that they helped me to change at different points in time. And I started to study the underlying principles that actually help to develop change. I found that those principles were common in many spiritual systems, including traditional African religions, as well as the systems of Tantra. And so when I look for tools, not necessarily just to be a moral or ethical guide, but when I look for actual tools to be able to change, to improve my behavior, the way that I showed up in the world and the way that I related to other people, that led me to traditional African religion and to Tantra and sacred sexuality. And so the tools that I found have been most useful for helping me to overcome a lot of what I learned from negative childhood experiences and from bad relationships. And it's what has allowed me to be propelled at a much higher speed towards my purpose and being focused and directed in the way that I live my life.
Yeah, I love that. And so manifest, what would you tell like a brother who doesn't? So, okay, let's go and say, tell us what Regimen is and your organization and how you are wanting to share the tools that you have with other men. Tell us about that.
So the term sage has a dual meaning, obviously. The first image comes to mind is a purification resin that we purify the body, the energy body with. And that's very important, or cleanse our living space periodically, maybe during the new moon, full moon. So sage men is about purification, but there's a higher meaning that goes beyond that. Also, the term sage means very elevated, very wise, very spiritually activated being. And so the wisest beings throughout the planet's history, the oftentimes the most spiritually empowered, have been considered sages in various different communities. And the sages have been both men and women. Oftentimes it's depicted as a man with a robe on, so forth and so on. But there have been many divine feminine sages as well. And so one of the sages that really stands out to me is Tahuti in the Kemetic tradition. And Tahuti is considered the wisest of all the sages, understanding oracle, divination, spiritual empowerment, things of that nature. So the sage men are about purification, fortification, and transformation. Those are our three areas. Being the best version of ourselves as melanated men. Oftentimes, when we think of Black men in particular, we think of sports, we think of macho, we think of having a level of vigor, vitality. However, the spirituality is considered missing oftentimes. And we've talked about this, and I've had many conversations with sisters as well. The sisters are fully activated on the planet, the divine feminine energy. And it's very challenging for many sisters, many Black women, to find mates that are on par with them, that they can have a conversation with beyond what do you want for dinner? What do you want to do tonight? You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And to really go deep or to go high in terms of, really, intellectual and spiritual exchange. And so we're changing that. Brothers like Emmanuel and myself and we're changing that. We want the Black man, we are determined that the Black man is going to be fully activated and elevated in his God consciousness. So when you think of ancient Kemet, it's not something just thousands of years ago. It's what we're building right now. We're all about building pyramids. We're all about living as geometric structures that rise to the occasion to our highest level of consciousness. And I don't want to have that sound too ethereal. The bottom line is that we want men to open up. We want men to be more transparent. We want men to be more vulnerable. When we say vulnerable, be open to sharing about your challenges. Be open to speaking about your shortcomings. That's the only way we can make really personal change. Oftentimes, particularly when it comes to Black men, I've seen we talk in third person. We want to make it about Trump. We want to make it about everything else, but actually our own issues, what we're dealing with. And so, with the Sage Men, we go deep. We challenge the men coming in to open up, to understand this is a safe space to grow, to evolve, to heal, and to transform into the best version of oneself.
And just to, I want to just veggie back on that just for a second. So I know that, Manifest, you shared just a lot of great things about the Sage Men program. I do want to talk about sort of, my interest and my involvement in the program as well. The Sage Men has given me an opportunity to share a lot that I've done in my life, from meditation, Tantra, to teaching martial arts and other different modalities. I've been able to integrate a lot of that into the Sage Men so far. It's been a great platform for me to personally find, personal fulfillment in being able to give my highest and my best gift. So it's definitely been a blessing to me. One thing that I really like about it is the fact that it's a program that's geared at developing the whole man, right? Now, as somebody who has taught Tantra outside of the context of a program like the Sage Men, I can tell you there are a lot of people who come to Tantra. There are men who come to Tantra because they just want the sexual upper hand, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, they want to learn whatever the funky trick is that everybody's doing now, you know what I'm saying? So that they don't fall behind with the competition, or so that they can dominate a woman, so that they can be superior, right? A lot of people are using techniques of Tantra to reinforce their ego. They're using it to reinforce deficiencies in their character, right? And that's problematic, right? Within the context of the Sage Man program, we're not teaching Tantra in isolation, right? We're giving people the tools that they need to develop as a whole man, to show up in their relationships, to show up as a husband, as a father, as a brother, as a community builder, right? All of these different aspects of their being are being addressed simultaneously, so that we see a holistic growth within the person and becoming their self.
Well, I want to echo what Aaron Philip Scott says. He says, God bless you and thank you. And I'm saying the same thing. God bless you and thank you for doing this, because, I know a lot of the sisters who really are looking for a sage man. They're looking for someone who meets all those qualities and does all those things that you all are saying. And Emmanuel, I'm very grateful that when I was doing my intro to Tantra, as far as before I took your class, but when I was coming to the info meeting, somebody told me that. Somebody in your group told me just to be careful of those types of things. And I'm glad that they did, because you always, me, I'm just like, people are studying how to be their best selves. It never occurred to me that people will try to use it against you. So I'm glad I know now. So what do some of those lessons look like? We have about 20 minutes left. What do some of those lessons look like for men? A few tips that you can share, especially for people who maybe the easy ones who have never heard this before, but maybe tonight or tomorrow morning, they can do something a little differently. Either one of you.
I would say make one's personal development his highest priority. Women are doing that. Y'all going to retreats, pre-COVID, of course, taking, going to conferences, you name it, learning Reiki, learning spiritual modalities, nonstop, and I've seen men, particularly Black men, kind of lower the bar. And I'm not judging the brothers. We all have kind of had the bar low, myself and Emmanuel and all brothers at certain points. But understand that living the best version of you is your birthright. That's not woo-woo. That's not something out there in the cosmos. everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to be a winner. And so when we talk about the sage men, we're talking about winning in all aspects of our lives as men. And so placing personal development, one's personal growth at the highest, in terms of one's highest priority. And that improves your finances, it improves your relationships, it improves your family connections, it improves your nutritional regimen, your spiritual growth, you name it. And so that is one of the biggest shifts I would really encourage men to do. And then meditation. When we think of many forms, whether it's Tantra or Qigong or yoga, at the core is meditation, going within, cultivating one's life force. So every man, those who are watching and may not necessarily be on the path, understand that meditation is not something for women. Meditation is not something for an elite group of men. Meditation is our birthright. We have done it anyway. When we go and just say, hey, man, I just want to clear my mind. I want to go out by the water. Now, sometimes, a brother will take some intoxicants to go do that. You know what I mean? He'll take something to help him get there. You know what I mean? Whether it's a beer or a drink or some type of psychedelic process, which is not necessarily needed. It's simply learning how to breathe, how to inhale, how to bring the life force, empower the life force within by bringing more life force, more chi in to replenish the cells, the vital organs, the spiritual centers, and release the toxins, the tension, the stress. And so that is a very simple yet very profound start. Making every man should make his personal development, his personal growth, his highest priority. And he should begin with a meditative practice that will help him go within. And when he goes within, he'll gain insights about himself. He'll have more clarity on where he is at this point in his life. He'll have a self-assessment to cultivate emotional intelligence. How am I feeling today? And so he's not just running on automation. And from that, then everything else can expand.
I have just a few points to add to that as well. I'd like just to give some examples of what that could look like from some different things that we've done in the past. So one example, for instance, last summer we held a 90-day rights program for men to help to facilitate a transition from the normal state of being into reflecting a higher aspect of who they are. During that process, we held a number of in-person retreats back when that was a thing that you could do. And so one of the lessons, so one of the things that we did was we taught martial arts, and we had an aspect of physical fitness that was a component of that, right? And now we didn't just like teach martial arts because brothers should know martial arts for some abstract reason, right? But like, I'll give an example of one of the specific lessons that we did. This was a defense against knife attacks, right? And so this was somebody is launching at you with a knife. What is it that you do? And so that exercise helped to do a number of different things. One is it exposes what your normal reaction would be in a surprise situation, right? And this is important because life tends to throw surprises at us. And a lot of times we're not really certain of how it is that we would react until we're put into a particular situation. We don't have necessarily the preparation for things that are out of the normal, right? So when we're put in a situation where somebody lunges at you suddenly with a knife, it exposes how it is that you react. That gives you an opportunity for self-awareness, right? And then from that self-awareness, you can move towards self-control. And then from self-control to self-defense by taking a better action in response to the particular stimulus, right? That's a life lesson. That's not the only lesson that came out of it. The other was how to move towards challenges in life instead of backing away, right? So if somebody lunges and the first reaction is, not a very beneficial reaction. What we want others to do is to see a challenge head on and move towards it. Learn how to confront it head on, redirect it, and change the outcome, right? And we want brothers to be able to embody that practice. So we put them in a context where they are forced to move towards the challenge instead of attempting to back away, because we believe that this reflects the way that the divine masculine operates, right? We also taught brothers how to heal physical challenges in their body through food. And I want to give credit to our elder, breath master, Aaron Motley, who came as a part. That's one thing I want to say too. The Sage Men is not just Manifest Raw, and it's not just Manifest Raw and EmmanuelTaylor either, you know, but Manifest does a great job of being able to find brothers with something to offer and a high reputation and be able to bring them in to share their gifts, right? And part of that is teaching our people that we don't have to go beyond our communities to find heroes, to find the solution to our problems, right? They're here within our communities, and we're helping to elevate the people who are qualified to teach but haven't been given a platform elsewhere. So it's a great thing as well. And I just want to say hats off to you, Brother Manifest, for your continued ability to do that, your demonstrated ability to do that. So we're teaching brothers how to find solutions within their own community, but also within themselves by bringing health challenges to the table and helping to educate them on how to address that with resources that are available through foods, through herbs, through things that they have direct control over, like what it is that they put into their body, right? So those are just some examples of different things that we've done to help brothers to become uplifted and to change their perspective in the way that they view their life, themselves, and their role in the world.
And I just want to say hats off to you as well, good brother Emmanuel. Emmanuel's an old soul. I think he's 32 years old in chronological years, but obviously he's been around for a long time, and he brings a wealth of knowledge. He's like a, you know, I mean, I say this respectfully, kind of like a spiritual gizmo kind of dude, you know, guy. He's pulling stuff out of his hat all the time, you know, whatever you need, I got it, you know. So, you know, the Sage Men is about being comprehensive and, you know, not being a jack of trades and master of none, but we have 7 specific archetypes that we activate and elevate. The visionary, every man must have his vision, have clarity on who he is, why he's here. And even if he comes in and he doesn't quite understand that, that's okay. You know, I don't know, you know, that's simply what that means. But we help brothers find their path, their mission, their reason for being. And then we have the warrior, as Emmanuel said. Every man should be able to activate the internal warrior. Can y'all hear me?
I don't want to gloss over the visionary for a second, because that's one example.
Okay, go ahead.
I didn't talk about, but I had in mind. One of the things that Brother Manifest taught us how to do is to ask a question, go into trance, tap into your divine intelligence, and come out of meditation with an answer, right? And so Manifest has taught us processes for being able to do that. So every brother can become his own oracle. Every brother can tap into his own sage wisdom to be able to find creative solutions to the problems that come up in life. And so that's part of what Manifest has offered in leading us through the visionary archetype. So I wanted to throw that into the mix as well, because that's something that every man should know how to do, especially every man who claims to or aspires to be a leader in some aspect in life. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but I didn't want that to get glossed over.
Ashe, absolutely. So yeah, so because if you think about it, I know Emmanuel and I've talked about this many times, is that and Wendy, when you know the sisters, the women ask the men, "Hey, honey, what do you want to do tonight?" Well, and 9 times out of 10, what's the man respond with? Whatever you want to do. So you know, when it comes to the most basic and mundane, oftentimes men are not, you know, demonstrating clarity, vision, direction. And we want to change that, you know, whether it's micro or the macro, men, as Emmanuel said, can go within themselves and get clarity in a brief period of time in terms of what their own process, their own divine intelligence is requiring that they do in that specific scenario to bring in fruition, manifest that particular intention and goal. So, but yeah, it's, you know, so we have the warrior, we have the enterpriser, and enterpriser is the aspect of the man that is financially literate and more abundant, the healer, the tantric, the pillar, that aspect of the man that is the family man, the pillar in this community, and then the alchemist, the mystic, that aspect of us that is spiritually attuned and walking as the divine intelligence. So, you know, brothers like Emmanuel and I, we do our absolute best to live that and to help other brothers activate that and live that within themselves.
My VSU, Virginia State University homie, Aaron, says, brothers that can empower one another, this is epic. So he put like the fist and the crown and all that. So he's just like, so Aaron, you're gonna have to connect with them. And then Rob Gill says that he had very little vision for himself before attending the 90-day transformational program. But as a whole, the program was a life-changing experience. So shout out to you guys from Rob. And then Aaron Philip Scott says, having a form of godliness, like we have a form of godliness, but we deny its power. And I can say we deny it, but I say in some instances, we don't even know it's there because we have given our power to other people, to others, to deities and spiritual systems and all those types of things instead of having our own power. So Emmanuel, I guess I took your class in March of 2019, and it has taken, this time to drill down. So I got the theory, but you got to put it into practice. So I've been able to put this into practice before COVID, but it's been even more helpful during COVID. So we're talking about, denying or not utilizing or not trusting your own divine power. And so recently, during this whole time, I've become more intuitive about what I need, what I want, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. And so I'm not going to harp on it, but to go back to the situation where I was saying that I miss my mom, I was feeling something in my body. Then I was craving chocolate chip cookies. And then I knew I needed something. I was just anxious. I was just feeling some kind of way. So I stood in my kitchen and I said, Wendy, what is this? You know what this is. Gave myself some time to drill down and think about what it was that I wanted. And then I was just like, boom, I want my mom. So I didn't need the cookie. I could drink some water. I knew I needed to move my body. And then I called her. So at least I got that. So it's like, what we usually know what we need, and sometimes we don't trust it, and sometimes we don't even take the time. It just took me a minute to be clear on what it was that I was needing. So that was me tapping into my own divine power and healing myself by hearing my mother's voice. That makes sense.
I give thanks. I'm grateful. Thank you for sharing. It's awesome to know that, that the tools do make a difference. So, I'm grateful.
Absolutely.
To hear you, to give that example and see how you put it into practice. That's
yes.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So we just have a few minutes left. And what I would like to do is to, if you have 1 or 2 tips each of you share for the brothers to carry on from tonight to the rest of the week, and moving forward, something simple that they can do to start to get their minds, more tuned into themselves.
I would say a couple of quick tools. Improve one's nutritional regimen. We've of course heard since we were small, we are what we eat. That's very vital during these times where we're going to have to do more with less. Less is more is going to be the approach. They're talking about, possible food shortages in the coming months and second wave and all of that. And so the immune system, 80% of it is in the gut, the digestive tract, diaphragm, dantian, whatever term we want to use. It's not necessarily in a mask or 6 feet away from people. That's what we're told. Something that we're waiting to go in our arms, if you will. So it is 80%. The vast majority of the immune system is right here in the gut. So what we're eating and how we're breathing are the 2 most important factors in our immunity. And so I would encourage every brother watching to make a self-assessment. See if he can eat more plant-based foods, less animal foods. If he's already on that path, what does he have to modify to increase his digestive process? Bring food in and also eliminate it in a timely fashion. Smoothies, juicing. There are all kinds of superfoods, spirulina, moringa that one can put in one's smoothie to boost their immunity. So I would say one of the first approaches is what we're putting in our system day in and day out.
Also, again, going back to what we said earlier, every man should have a meditative practice and start from there. Oftentimes, meditation is very challenging for people because everyone's multitasking. On the phone, people driving down the street, on the phone, looking here, looking there. And so we're all, consistently out of our bodies. We're not having an out-of-body experience. We're just out in technology. And so going within is very empowering. And so I would encourage every man to take about 10 or 15 minutes when he wakes up to just be quiet in gratitude, breathe in, breathe out, and periodically throughout the day, check in. How am I breathing? How am I managing my emotions? How am I feeling at this time? So forth and so on. Because whatever that is at that particular moment, when we become the observer, we can change it in a very favorable fashion. If not, what a lot of folks are doing right now is emotional eating. They're just eating what they, whatever they can get their hands on to deal with these increasing stressful situations. So change one's nutritional regimen, upgrade that, and then also meditation as well. Those would be my two.
I would reinforce that. Traditional Chinese medicine basically says, we have different types of energy that flows through the body, but primarily the ways that we get energy, more energy into the body, are through our food and through our breath, right? Why do we need energy? We need energy to change things. That is a basic principle of physics, and it is true in this material world, right? If you want to change something in the material world, you need energy to change it. It doesn't matter if you're trying to push a rock up a hill, move a car down the street. If you're trying to grow, if you are trying to change something, you need energy to do that, right? And when it comes to our own personal being, we get our energy primarily through our breath and through our food. And so it's important to manage those two things well so that we're able to make change. If we neglect those things, we can try all we want. This is, I like the idea, this Western idea of willpower, right? But my understanding, which is rooted in a Kemetic point of view, is that we have two separate things. We have will and we have power, right? Because a lot of people have desires. A lot of people want to do some things, but they don't have the power to do it. They're lacking in energy, right? And so, my point of view is that we need cultivation of two different things. We need to cultivate our will and we need to cultivate our power, right? And everybody should have some practice that helps them to do both of those things. For me, those practices are meditation and Tantra. Meditation to cultivate my will, Tantra to cultivate my power. Combining the two of them together to be able to accelerate the results, right? Now, there are other practices to be able to cultivate the will. There's prayer, there's ritual, there's a whole, there's reading, there's journaling, right? There's so many different things that we can do to address our mind, psychology, therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, even basic mindfulness or mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, right? All of these things help to cultivate the will. We have lots of modalities to cultivate our energy, from Qigong, to martial arts, to Tantric Kriya Yoga, dynamic meditation. There's a whole slew of different things, right? It's important for everybody to find something that works for them so they know how to change their minds and they know how to change their behavior. Right? Cultivation of the will, cultivation of the power. So I'd encourage every man and every person to find out what works for you so that when there are things that you need to change in life, you know that you can.
Well, thank you so much. That makes sense. And when some people, probably specifically men, because they're probably less inclined to, I'm going to sit and do the Om. I don't do the Om. I'm a walking meditation person. I get up in the morning, I say thank you, but then I get in the woods or wherever I go. So that's how it works for me. So if you're trying to figure out, they're saying meditate, you figure out what works for you. Everybody's different. So make sure that you find what works for you. If it works for you, then you build on that. And then you were talking about, I forget who said it, but somebody said something, both of you talked about food. And getting your food, a more high quality food, in addition to understanding that potentially during this second wave, there will be a food shortage. So learning how to grow your own food. So even Next week, the episode that we're doing is with Uriah Israel, who is my teacher, who is teaching me how to grow my own food on my small little balcony in Virginia, okay? Because I'm understanding that I might need to do that because of food insecurity. So join us next week and we'll talk about that. But again, these are things that you can be doing now, which was the point of summer school, was to add tools. So you add the tools, the good food, the breathing, the meditation, the cultivating and understanding for you, the will versus the power, and then putting them together. So it's not a verse, it's just the will and the power.
Do I have 30 seconds to comment on the food situation?
Please, please.
A lot of people, I'm a longtime urban farmer, permaculturist, develop hydroponics, aquaponics systems, renewable energy systems to power all of that, passive solar greenhouses, you name it, There's a perspective that I learned from permaculture that I think is really interesting when it comes to meeting your basic needs, but we can look at it as applied to food. And this is the concept of zoning, right? Trying to meet as much of your needs as locally as possible, right? What can I grow on my windowsill? What can I grow on my porch? What can I grow in my backyard? What can I grow in a community garden? Is there a local farmer that I can have food delivered, right? Are there regional farms? Is there a food buying club in my area that I could join for bulk grains and sugars and oats and things like that, right? I just named about 6 or 7 different ways to get food before ever stepping into a grocery store, right? And so this concept of zoning, if you think about that and apply that to all of your basic needs, we can transform local economies, right? And we can build stronger networks of cooperation.
So I'm about to be hollering at you, Emmanuel, to help me with my food, my situation on my balcony. We're just getting it together for the cold crops, okay? So I'm excited. So y'all join us next week. So where can everybody find you all? Where, if some brothers are interested in what you're doing, I know things are virtual now, but how can they find you?
Very simple, thesagemen.com, THESAGE, men, men.com, thesagemen.com. Takes you directly to our Facebook group page. We have all kinds of information about activities and upcoming workshops. We just completed recently a mindfulness and manhood 28-day process, very empowering. We had about 15, 16 brothers involved, and they were checking in and they were learning about their visionary healer meditation, how to get clarity in these very intense times for one's own direction and set one's own intention. Also, the warrior healer. How can I be the best version of myself in terms of activating that resilience within me to move through what we're experiencing in the world? And of course, the Tantra meditation with Emmanuel as well. And so we have more of that to come. We have some of that that's continuing as we speak. And then we also have a workshop coming up on a guided meditation for healing racial trauma next Sunday, not this Sunday, but next Sunday. And then Emmanuel and I even talked about possibly he presenting on emergency preparedness and self-sufficiency as we move into this second wave. So we have a number of programs that are ongoing and many to come, thesagemen.com.
Okay, I put it in the notes. I put the Sage Men in the notes. Emmanuel, did you want to say something?
Yes, so EmmanuelTaylor, Seneb Wellness Services, RASENEB. You can find me on Instagram. You could always email me to rasenebwellness@gmail.com. I tend to teach two large classes a year, in the spring to the summer, Tantra, and in the fall to the winter, meditation. And so if anybody is interested, you can look forward to a meditation class that's coming up to prepare for the winter solstice, which is a great opportunity to work on that will aspect of our being. And in the summer, in the spring, the Tantra class is a great opportunity to work on that energy aspect of our being. I know I can be a bit elusive. I tend to hide in the shadows and whatnot, but I'm around. If you're trying to find me, you can find me.
So I appreciate that. And, for anybody who is listening, whether you're listening now or whether you're seeing us on YouTube or on the web pages somewhere in a few weeks from now, I would suggest, if you can, to keep your eyes on what the gentlemen are doing. because it has been very beneficial even for me. So the Tantra class pretty much changed my life. It changed the lens on how I see myself, how I show up in a room, my energy when I show up in said room, and all those different things. And so I would say it can't hurt. You know, I think it can only enhance, and, you know, it's nothing to be afraid of. You know, it's not I don't think it's a religion. It is more of a birthright of tapping into your energy that you have never been taught that you were born with. And then Manifest was in my class. So we got to learn even more together. And the other thing is, I'm putting you on the spot, Emmanuel, that emergency preparedness class, we might have to do an extended summer school session and have you on, because I took an emergency preparedness class recently through Sankofa Homeschool. They had this big thing, Liberated Minds, and basic stuff I just did not have in place. And so I think it's important, as many people are talking about it. So I would like for us to talk about that moving forward. So please contact them. I think it could be very helpful. Aaron says, much love to you, Wendy, brother. Thank you for blessing them with their light. And then Ron Jones says, thank you for all the knowledge. So you guys definitely reach out to them to learn more. So I'm going to talk about the next few weeks and then we'll end. Like I said, I have my teacher, Uriah Israel, who will be talking about how to grow your own food. We're moving into, depending on where you are in the United States, you grow certain things. So we'll be talking about that. And then the week after that, my own daughter, who will be a rising senior this year, along with my niece and along with some of my other family members who are class of 2020 going to college. They're going to talk about the emotional, spiritual, physical effects that being a senior or a rising senior in COVID has had on them. Going to college, they're missing rites of passage, and what does that emotional, mental effect have on them, and how they're feeling about going to college. Are they afraid? And how does my daughter and everybody feel about missing prom, missing football games, the things that we have taken for granted for so long? Life is different now. So we're going to talk to these young people, 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, about how they're coping and where they're getting their information from. So those are the next few classes. So please join us right here on the Sanctuary Radio Show. Again, thank you so much, Emmanuel. I finally got you on, and thank you, Manifest, for this is your third time. So you the real MVP for being here, for always being willing to share your knowledge. So thank you, gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your day, and everybody, please reach out. Thank you.
We thank you, Wendy, for having us on your platform and sharing our love and light with the community. We greatly appreciate it.
Peace, everybody.